fam, what if I told you that a lot of factors that exist in society today are just a way of influencing us to live a certain type of way? Take, for example, religion, or culture, or social norms. I think someone put them in place to get us to live a certain type of way. And guys, I get it. I could be wrong, but again, the good news here is that I stand to be corrected. And that's the whole point of this podcast. If you're an open-minded person willing to challenge the status quo in pursuit for knowledge and deeper understanding of life, then welcome to Joanne on Air podcast. Hey fam, welcome to yet another episode of Joanne on Air. It's such an honor that you take the time every other week when we release new episodes to listen in. Your feedback goes a long way in ensuring that we are very intentional in the people that we have these conversations with in order to make a difference for you each time you listen in. In today's episode, we get to have a conversation that's been a long time waiting. Because I don't know about you and your friend circle, but in mine, we've been having this argument go on for quite some time. And we kept saying we should just switch on the mics and get right at it. There's been a battle, I don't know if you've noticed, low-key somewhere, where Gen Zs are fighting against millennials are fighting against Gen Zs, who's the better generation, who's doing this better. But before we get into it, I just wanted to bring everyone to speed. First things first, let's understand the actual difference that exists between millennials and Gen Zs. Millennials were born roughly between the years 1981 to 1986, while Gen Zs were born the year after, 1997 to 2012. There's a couple of things that put them apart. When you spread out those years, you will realize that millennials grew up with the internet and technology becoming increasingly famous and integrated into a lot of people's lives. While now for Gen Zs, they grew up entirely in the digital age with technology being an integral part of our lives. So the difference here is that millennials did exist mostly half of their life off the internet and then half of their other life with the internet in place. But for Gen Zs, they were born here and the internet was already here. So you can imagine the different dimension of exposure that offers to both generations, which can be totally different. And I think a lot of problems or experiences or redefinition of what life is to both generations it all starts there. And in today's conversation, we explore it. So I sit down with one Gen Z and one millennial. They are a representation of what these two generations are, and I honestly think they were like the perfect guests to sort of bring out both places, like, oh, I'm coming from this point, I'm coming from this point, for us to have a very informed conversation. And I cannot wait for you guys to hear about it. So without any further ado, hi there. Are you guys still there, or you disappeared on me?
No, we're here. I am here.
Oh, okay. How is the heat? Is it hot wherever you are? I don't know.
Oh my goodness. It is so hot. I don't even understand what's going on. So damn hot.
It is very hot.
I hope you're hydrating amidst the heat. Whatever you're dealing with, please don't forget to drink water.
Yeah, hydrating is important. Extremely important.
We're doing our best.
That's good. That's good. I want to start with the drinking water. Did people then drink as much water as the way Gen Zs right now have sort of like romanticized the whole hydrate? There's bottles branded. Oh, you're almost there. You take 2 liters. You're doing a good job. Was that a thing then, or it's just a Gen Z way of?
No, I mean people now are more mindful about their health. And for obvious reasons, because nowadays there's all these complications that the human race is faced with. There are all these conditions that are coming up left, right, and center. So there is need for you to be more mindful about your health than you probably were 15, 20, 30 years ago. So drinking water is a very, very huge necessity. It's a part of everyday living today. Back then, it wasn't much of a big deal because, I mean, as I said, certain ailments, certain conditions, certain diseases were non-existent even, right? But now there's more people with things like diabetes and hypertension and all these cancers and, all these, like there's just too much happening, right? Processed foods, chemical substances in the things we eat, the things we apply on our bodies. So it's just a mess, which means now you have to be intentional about your health. So it's no surprise that people are now encouraged to hydrate a lot more, and also because science has advanced, there is more discovery about how to take care of your skin, your bones, your muscles, and water is a very, very important ingredient in most of those things. So yeah, there's a lot of talk around hydration now, which is why every corporate babe now has a Stanley bottle
Oh God.
around it. Yeah.
That's what's in my mind right now. I was about to ask China, do you have a Stanley cup?
I don't really have a Stanley cup,
Do you have
but
a
I
water
have
bottle?
Stanley cup. I have very many water bottles and Stanley cup lookalikes.
You move around with them, right?
Yeah, I move around with a very big bottle every day.
There you go.
And I make a lot of trips from my desk to the water dispenser every day.
Typical Gen Z behavior. People used to drink water. They weren't just painting all over social media like, "Hi, look at me, I'm drinking water."
Yeah, but also, in all fairness, there wasn't social media then. So a lot of the things we did were not necessarily, publicized, for lack of another word, right? We did them, yes, but they weren't out. Like you didn't buy newspaper space to post a picture of you taking water. You didn't need to do that. You didn't need to buy space on TV or on radio to tell people what you had for lunch. It doesn't mean we never used to have lunch. We did, but yeah. So
if the phones was there, if the phones and internet was there, would you do these things, or were you just not doing these things because the phones and internet weren't there?
I don't know, a bit of both, to be honest. I think if phones, if social media was there at the time, there are certain things we probably would not have done that are being done today. Because society wasn't where it is now in terms of the things that were priority. Because back then, things like gratification weren't that much of a big deal. Like social gratification, where I need to seek approval of audiences. It was better and smarter to seek approval from the people closest to you, who are usually your friends and family, and maybe your mates at work or school. But today, because the world is more interconnected, you want to seek approval from people in Japan and Netherlands and the UK and the US, and as opposed to seeking approval from people within, your vicinity. So yeah, there was a difference there. But I'm also glad that there was no internet, because I can tell you there are some things we got up to. I'm glad they were not documented. So yeah,
I think most of the things that are here right now was there, like seeking approval. I feel like it was there, but maybe it was done in a different way. Remember those days when okay, me, I'm not Christian, but for Christians, I used to hear stories. If they buy you like a card dress for Christmas, that's the day you want to go to church. And then in church, you want to get up and walk around or go to the toilet. When people are just seeking approval was there, like it is right now, but done in a different way and using different means or channels.
No, that I probably agree with you, because it's a human thing, right? Seeking approval, it's a human.
Yeah.
It's not. It has nothing to do with even in medieval times, people sought approval. So that's not really the big deal. The big deal is, for me, what the priorities were. For example, right? People want to be seen as successful, even when they may not necessarily be successful, right? People want to wear this mask of I'm fine, everything is okay, I'm living a glamorous life, and yet they probably aren't. But back then it was a bit hard to do that, because people see you, they hear you, they encounter you, they bump into you every day, so they know the life you're living. It was harder for you to lie to people that you're happy, because they could see you, right? You couldn't hide behind a screen or a piece or a paper, or no, people saw you, so it was harder to fake this whole thing that people do now, where you must be seen to be happy, you must be seen to be in a good relationship, you must be so yeah.
I hear you when you say that the pursuit for like external validation. I think, honestly, unpopular opinion, Gen Zs are like big fans of like that outward gratification. Like, you want to prove a point to people that, hey, I am bowling harder. I have the coolest hair, the coolest laugh, which I don't think a lot of millennials have. I don't know what China thinks about that.
Honestly, like I said before, I feel like these things were there before, but they were done differently. People would still want to be seen a certain way. Okay, I'm thinking that back in the day, people would still want to be seen a certain way, yet it's actually not the actual way. We've heard about, let me give the best example, probably these couples that would fight at home. In their house, they're probably sleeping in different bedrooms. But then when they go to events, you see a mom and a dad sitting together, trying to mind about what society thinks about their relationship and stuff. But when they actually enter their house, they're both sleeping in different bedrooms. So I feel like these things have been there, but they're
Mm.
just being done in a different way now.
I
Eh,
I I I, I don't know. I really want to first of all disagree with that, right?
Mm.
Um, that the things you're talking about are things that have been there since time immemorial, right? The
Yes.
things I am talking about are things that have come with this generation, and this generation being the generation that is most tech savvy and having this access to the internet. So basically, I'm speaking about the things that the internet has done to this generation. Or is it vice versa? Things that this generation has done to the internet, right? That because of the presence of the internet, yeah, certain things that ideally should have remained in the four walls of your house, yeah,
mm,
are now outside, right?
yeah.
For example, I have a fight with my partner.
Mm,
Um, Back in the day, what usually happened was, the family sits down. There's some kind of court, some kind of court of arbitration, and when we come some form of consensus, and the people who are involved are usually the close family and the clan. If you're to kind of widen it, but today my partner pisses me off, the first place I go is the internet. These are absolute total strangers. They don't give a shit about my life. Excuse my French. But like they don't care about my life, right? But because it's a hot subject, everybody's going to want to chip in, and before you know it, my relationship is probably going to disintegrate. Not because it's actually a bad relationship, but because I've gotten all this random advice from people who don't even know my actual circumstances. They don't know that in my life this is actually what is happening, as opposed to what's on social media. So that little thing there, that you know turning to the world for solutions when the solutions can and should be found from within, is something that is
mm,
synonymous with this generation, and wasn't necessarily what people from back then did, millennials or um,
mm.
yeah.
So I agree with where both of you are coming from. I think here the common ground here is the evolution of the internet. Gen Zs were born into the time
Right.
where the internet was here. Like unlike millennials where half of their life probably had no internet,
Yeah.
not enough access, and then half of it, yeah, the internet is here. Now Gen Zs have had their entire life shaped off the internet, which sort of like really pretty much explains how they ended how I don't want to say because I am better how they or how we ended up here where you'd rather share things on the internet than talk about it with a friend. Like we've seen these things and you're looking at someone and you're like, hey, don't you have friends? Like are these things supposed to be things that just end up within your friend circle or in your home? Like there's no point for you to bring this linen on the internet.
I'm still not comfortable that it's the advent of the internet that's causing that, because I mean there are people that go through things and they don't post them on the internet. But I do remember maybe back in the day when we were still young, there are people that would fight and then the whole village would gather around to see what's happening and stuff and stuff. Why
I,
wouldn't these people just stay in their four walls and then discuss these things? I still don't
yeah.
feel the emergence of the internet. I feel like that's more like a personality thing.
Yeah, I hear you when you say that, because you know how they say when someone is broke, if they are, I don't know, if they are whatever with money, they will be 10 times without money, they will be 10 times worse with money. Is that what you're saying? Because to me, that's what it feels like. Like at the end of the day, people are going to be who they are, whether there is the internet or not, whether there's validation or not. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I feel like it's not really about the internet. It's about somebody, somebody's personality or something. I don't know. I just don't feel like it's because of the internet that people decide to put their things outside there. Like I said, back in the day, you'd probably be doing your things. And then out of the blue, you hear people fighting, or this couple fighting, and you see people running from their homes to gather around the people that are fighting and stuff. So you see what I'm saying, that these things were happening, but in a different way.
Yeah, the internet probably just amplified them. Biwo.
Yeah, I mean, again, obviously I disagree. That yes, those fights you're talking about happen those days. You would hear one fight every month, right? Or one
Mm.
fight every 2 weeks or whatever. But today, 5 fights every hour, right? That's A. And then B, again, this thing of saying that, the internet is not to blame. I really I don't know what world you're living in, China, but I can confidently tell you that there are certain things that the internet draws people to do, things they would probably not have done, right? Because, for example, when people get online, and people are, say, slut shaming, or I don't know, bullying somebody, right? There's somebody in the comments there who's going to come and say something nonchalant, something they would never have said if they faced you first, like if you were in front of them, they would never have said it. But because there is this seemingly protective wall between you and them, which is the internet, they're like, this person doesn't know me, I don't know them, I can insult them. You couldn't do that back in the day, because you insult me, we fight, right? Because you can see me, I can see you, right? Today, because I'm behind the wall, I don't know you, China, you don't know me. I can go online and fabricate some lies and say, this babe has done ABC, and my life goes on, and your life gets shattered, right? But back then, my friend, you say something about me, I'm going to square off with you. So it was harder for people back then to sort of throw around lazy words and be nonchalant about how they insult people, and be sexist, or do all these horrible things. And it was harder then. It's much, much very easy now, extremely easy. I can get online and say something very, very false about you, and people run with it. People don't verify. They'll run with it. They'll just say, by the way, we've seen this, hey, shit, whatever. You've seen on TikTok how there's these accounts that are dedicated to gossip, right? If your partner is cheating on you, send us information about them. We shall find out. We shall investigate. I don't know if your boss has all this rubbish, right? So yeah, back then, there was no platform to do that, and if you really wanted to insult somebody, and you did, you would square off with them. So you only had the opportunity to insult people near you, which was hard, because you know them personally, you know their sufferings, they know your sufferings.
I hear Biwol, and I do agree with whatever you're saying. I do agree. And I still stand my ground that I still don't blame the internet so much. I feel like it's a personality thing. It's a personal thing. I feel like somebody right now, like I wouldn't want to do something online and say maybe because the internet sent me to do this, or I wake up in the morning and then create a Stan account and then start abusing somebody and stuff and stuff and stuff. I feel like it's more of a personal thing, like somebody's bias, somebody's behavior, somebody's.
China, I want. Oh, sorry. I'm cutting you short here, but I, I will tell you that something that the internet does. Again, why I blame the internet, right? That okay, people are inherently well. One can say people are inherently evil, right?
Mm.
And everybody has some form of evil lurking in them, right? They just need the right opportunity, the right platform, and the right buttons to be pushed, and that evil will come out. So what the internet has done has, first of all, made them imagine that they have no evil. That's A. And then B, the internet has given them this wall of safety where you can be evil and get away with it. And then 3, the internet has also given them this platform where you can be evil and be praised for it. In the sense that you post your picture, somebody comes in the comments and insults you. And below that, they're ha ha ha, lol, hey, what shit. What is that? This is what the internet has given you. The internet has also given you, and finally, the internet has also given people a platform to kind of to attempt to be horrible like other people, because other people have gotten success off of being horrible. So because the other person has insulted people left, right, and center, and they have all these views, all these followers, all these likes, or whatever, this person is thinking, I think I can also do that. If there was no internet, that thought would never have crossed their minds. So there you go.
I agree with both of you, like I said, but then at the same time, when you're speaking, I'm here thinking, I'm like, I don't think now that, so there's a line between who does that and who doesn't. I've seen millennials on social media bash, like, people way older than millennials bash people they have no information about, like just go on and disrespect people. I don't even think it's a generation thing. I think it's,
as I said, it's a human thing. It's a
human thing. Access to technology gives us that sort of feeling like we can say whatever and get away with it. I want us to talk about, again, the internet. I want to channel the conversation through that. A lot of, considering the fact that we were born during the time the internet was here, like we got here, the internet is here, it's booming, it's evolving at a very fast rate. That means a lot of us who had access to these things grew up on the internet, which I have an unpopular opinion where a lot of Gen Zs lack identity. They've shaped their entire personalities of what they've seen on the internet. Like, they have zero sense of originality, of rootedness about who they want to be, what they want to do with their lives. A lot of these things are things they copied off a celebrity, some guy they grew up listening to, an artist. Unlike millennials who were very rooted, probably because they were able to allow space for like imagination of how they wanted their life to turn out, because they didn't have much access to these to the internet, to these devices. China, you go first on this because I'm coming at you.
I don't think this calls for an argument or exchange.
Also, you do agree?
Yeah, because I agree. I do agree.
Do you agree Gen Zs don't have any sense of identity, really? You ask them, why do you want to do that, or why are you doing that? Because that's what Jay-Z does. Because that's what Kim can. Why do you want flowers on Valentine's? Because every other girl is getting flowers on Valentine's. You get, like, there is zero sense of like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I want to be. I want to be like this because this is me. You get?
Yeah. I mean, that's sadly very true. And like the both of you are kind of alluding to, the one thing that worries me a lot is people never really have time for themselves and to themselves. Mostly, I mean, as you say, the internet, you have your phone, so there's always something happening on the internet. Yeah, there's always a notification somewhere. There's always some gossip in a WhatsApp group. There's always something trending on TikTok. So there's always need for you to pay attention to everything other than yourself. Now, back in the day when there was really no internet, I mean, for example, your parents told you, come into the house, sit down, and the TV is off, right? All you have are your thoughts, right? And that can kind of give you time to think about certain things, to reflect, and when you do that today, tomorrow, next week, next month, it becomes a habit that you have certain personal you have time with and for yourself. That helps you to create that, or to identify who you are, and to have that identity, right? So when you go out and interact with the world, you know who you are, you know what your values are, you know what your non-negotiables are, you know what you can do, what you can't do. But with the internet, it doesn't give you room, yeah, because of all this addiction that we have, you are always listening to, paying attention to, watching other people. You never really have time where you switch off everything else, switch off
Yeah.
gadgets, and just listen to yourself, right? Just to kind of understand, who the heck am I? What do I want? What are my dreams? What are my goals? What are my fears? What do I want to achieve in this life? Am I happy? How far have I come? What are my failings? All these questions you never ask yourself. So in the process of just kind of going with the flow takes you where it wants to go, right? So if on the internet this is what is trending, you're going to think, okay, so I think that is who I want to be, or that is who I need to be, and then you kind of gallivant in that direction. Tomorrow the trends change. You're like, okay, I think this is what I want. So you're never really rooted to one place, and that's sad.
I feel like
I hear you.
maybe the advantage that comes to this is exploration of identities. The internet has provided Gen Zs with platforms and information to explore different interests, hobbies, and communities, which eventually helps them discover who they really are. Unlike back in the day when you probably don't know who you really are, but you just so I feel like there's some bit of goodness to this whole identity thing, because if somebody's not just stuck with who they have chosen and then they are trying to explore this and this and this, like I said, interests, hobbies, and communities, at the end of that day, when you probably reach a certain age, you've explored these different identities and now you know who you really are as a person, and you know what you're interested in, and you know what your community really is, unless rather than just probably going with what's there.
We're talking about social media here. Why that is actually a terrible thing with the whole exploring and trying out different things, because you're picking this off social media. At the end of the day, social media is a compilation of people's highlights of lives. So I once watched a documentary, I think about a month ago, that talked about how Gen Zs have zero muscle for like resilience and like persistence at things that actually matter in life. So yeah, you look at, let's say, Ronaldo's life, you're like, damn, I like to play to play soccer. I should give it a try. You explore that option. When all you're seeing of Ronaldo's life on the internet is the championships he has, because then you're looking at people's highlights of their lives and you somehow think that grass is green on the other side. Even when you're here, what it does to you is it creates lack of contentment about where you are. And then you're like in with the whole idea of like, oh, I'm exploring, I don't think I like it here, because one, you're comparing, two, you think grass is greener on the other side, but also at the same time you're really not developing any muscle for like seeing a thing through. Like, okay, so that's why I think Big Wall's point makes sense. Once you have the time to take to like say, hi, I'm so and so, and this is what I want of life, even when you see another person's life, because you already know who you are, you're staying true. I think the transition of like exploration should be not from what you're picking off social media, but from like, okay, I'm at this point, I've evolved, I want a different path out of this life, not what you're feeding off social media.
Again, I still think it's a personality thing.
No.
If you explore things and then feel like, oh, I should compare my life to this person's life, and then what? And then me, I'm just this open-minded explorer that just wants to probably learn things and then try them to a certain extreme. It does not become, this is where the difference comes in, because I'm thinking that your explanation is really focused on this explorer that would go to an extreme end or to an extra mile to even lose their minds and do certain things, or depress themselves by comparing themselves to what. I still feel like it's a personality thing.
You know, I feel like the the idea of somebody discovering themselves, the reason why the internet is dangerous in that regard is that before you interact with the external world, you've got to first make peace with the internal world, right? And what the internet does is, A, it takes away your time for yourself, which for me is the key highlight, that you're not able to sit down and shut out the world because every 2 seconds your phone is chiming, there is a notification. So you don't necessarily have an extended period of silence, of just, your silence, right? That's one. And then two, the danger of the internet in this regard is that, when you're on that self-exploration journey and you're trying to have those conversations with yourself, you must have as few distractions as possible, but you must also be intentional about it, right? And being intentional comes from a place where, from your childhood, you are okay being alone, and the internet has taken away that ability of human beings to be alone. So now it's very hard to find somebody seated with their phone, not touching it, and just staring into nothingness. It's very, very hard. Most people will say, "Are you fine? Are you okay?" Like you should be scrolling on your phone or watching something. So that is the challenge. But there's something China mentioned that I think is quite important. That one of the benefits that the internet gives, that for us from back in the day we didn't necessarily have, is, when you're on that self-exploration journey, there are questions you ask yourself and you never have answers to, right? And there's another person in Taiwan who struggles with the same thing. There's another person in the US who struggles with the same thing. Now, what the internet allows you with is you are able to interact with those people and also realize that, okay, so maybe I am not a problem per se. Maybe this thing I'm struggling with is not an impossible thing to get over because somebody else overcame it, or somebody else is struggling with the same thing. So that's a positive. But that the only way that can be a positive is if you are first able to have the conversation with yourself, to just stare into nothingness, have zero thoughts, and just be at peace with yourself. That's just where it should begin, and then the rest of them can come on. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I like where we're headed. I'm gonna ask China here. Do you think millennials are just angry at Gen Zs because they
what kind of
went
question is that, Joe?
I've had word in the corridors that millennials are pissed. They're like, who do these Gen Zs think they are? About all these things. You don't do life like that because for some reason they want us to do life the way they did. So China, your thoughts?
I think angry is a straight.
It's pushing
angry
it.
is such a huge word to use.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's no being generic here, because there's some millennials that have embraced how Gen Zs live their lives, and you see a millennial actually doing Gen Z things. So I feel like it's a matter of embracing the new eras and probably embracing them, and then trying to integrate them in how millennials used to live, like striking a balance. You get.
Yeah.
So I feel like being angry is such a stretch, because I have friends that are millennials, but they're, let me quote unquote, they're cool. They are doing cool things that millennials do, and then you see this Gen Z probably you see this millennial in a Gen Z party, and you're wondering, did this one skip a stage?
Hey, you guys, you don't want us to attend your parties. What is
She's
it?
a piece. She said angry was a big word. Now she's just
angry is
dragged
such
you
a
guys
big
through the
word.
mud.
I feel angry is such a big word. I feel like the right word to use is embracing. So this is also different for some people. There are some millennials that are stuck in their millennial way of thinking, and then there are some millennials that have actually embraced how the Gen Zs live, and then they have tried to integrate both worlds to make it one, and they're living well.
Look, I wholly agree with you fully, entirely, China. I think angry might be pushing it, but as is the case with every group of people, right? There is always some form of friction, between what is what was and what will be. There will always be friction. The traditionalists, people who were born, in the early 20s to about 40s or 50s or thereabout, the way they lived life, the way they viewed life was different from the baby boomers who came after them, right? And the Gen X that came after them also saw life differently. So for them, their understanding of what success looks like and what failure looks like was very different from their predecessors. And then the millennials also, who came in after that, the way society changed, it could not permit them to see life the way Gen X did. And then the Gen Zs also came, and they had certain things at their disposal. Each of those cohorts, those different generational cohorts, there will always be friction. That's the ugly truth. There will always be friction. Even the Gen Zs now, who seem like they are the in thing, are going to have a big problem with the Gen Alpha kids. Because these Gen Alpha kids, the way they view life, their level of entitlement is unprecedented. I'm telling you, there are things they will expect of you, and you're like, are you kidding me? I'll tell you this, for example, that between, for example, my dad, right? My dad and myself, right? My dad is from the Gen X. So for them, the way they went to school, it was absolute pure pain, right? It was struggle, So they tell you stories of how they walked, miles and, crossed swamps and did these things. And I'm like, dude, that was your time. I don't have to cross a swamp to go to a school. There are cars now. You can drive me to school, right? So now me as a millennial, now the Gen Z, the discussion about driving them to school is not even there. As in, it's obvious. The discussion is not even going to be hard. It's obvious. You're my dad. You're supposed to drive me to school. What do you mean I go to school alone? Are you mad? So the discussion is not even there. Now, between the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, it actually changes, because now the Gen Alpha will say, I don't even want to go to school, right? It's my right, which and that will infuriate the Gen Z, because they're like, what do you mean it's your right? I'm your freaking parent. I make the important decisions for you. But the Gen Alpha is going to say, "What? I don't want to go to school." And so there will always be a disconnect between the cohorts. As China mentioned, I think it would be prudent of anyone in any cohort to try and understand what happened before them, what's happening after them, and see what good tenets they can pick from each, and what negative tenets they can discard from their own cohort, and just become a better human. As simple as that.
I am here for the friction of generations to see who is doing it better. I live for that friction.
Circumstances are different. The thing about doing it better. The reason why it's a very subjective word. Yeah, that when I was going to school in the 90s, right? There are certain things that we used to do that were commonplace. For example, when I'm going to school in the morning, I knew that at break time, I have my 300 or 200 shillings. I can buy break, buy my buy samosas or chapati or whatever. Take my porridge, go to class. Now things change, because now schools actually provide the breakfast, right? So a kid doesn't necessarily have to carry money for that breakfast. Now there are other things they have to carry money for. So which changes it changes the equation. It doesn't mean I lived a better time or the kid now is living a better time. It just means we live different times.